Good morning. Today we are starting the new lesson, that is the biomechanics and sports. So in the chapter, this is also named as Kinesiology, Biomechanics and Sports. So this chapter we will study about the biomechanics, the principles of the biomechanics, and the application of the principles of the biomechanics in sports activities. So first of all, the definition of the biomechanics. The biomechanics are the principles, the biological movement of the human beings in relation with the principle of the physics we will study here. Projectile and factor affecting projectile trajectory, this we will discuss. Angular and linear movements, introduction to work, power and energy. Friction we will discuss here. Mechanical analysis of walking and running. So first is the definition of kinesiology. Kinesiology, kinesis, it is made up of two words. Kinesis means movement or to move. Logos means the science of or study. So kinesiology can be defined as the scientific study of human motion. And the kinesiology also defined as human and non-human movements, the study of the human and non-human being movement. Kinesiology means the science of movement. So overall we can say the kinesiology is the science of the movement and study of the various type of movement, including active and passive structure. Kinesiology is the science which investigate anatomy and organic processes in reference to human motion. Whereas the picture we will see here, kinesiology, the various type of movements are there. So the kinesiology is the study of movement. It is tests that show weakness in muscles and study the movement in the body. And Sanan More explained it's a study that focus on the body and its movement from psychological, biological and physiological perspectives. So this is Sanan More has given the definition of the biomechanics. So we will see some the muscular movements are there in the biomechanics, the kinesiology. Now the meaning of biomechanics. The study and analysis of human movement pattern in sports is called biomechanics. And the study of the structure and function of biological systems such as human, animal, plant, organ and cells by means of the methods of mechanics. There are various principles and laws of biomechanics which we will study. And one more, the easiest definition I want to tell you about the biomechanics. Biomechanics is known as the biological movement of the human beings in relation with the principle of the physics. Because in biomechanics we study the various principles of the physics which are applied in sports through the human movement. So that's why this is the biomechanics is known as the biological movement of the human beings in relation with the principle of physics that we will see here. The biomechanics is the biological movements of human beings in relation with the principles of physics, the universal definition of the biomechanics. There are various principles of the biomechanics. These are the like law of motion, Levent's types, principle of projectile and aerodynamics, principle of friction and streamlined body, principle of equilibrium and stability, principle of force, principle of power, and principle of speed. So, biomechanics, we can see we are studying all the principles of the physics, and these are the law of mechanics and physics which are applied to human performance in order to gain a greater understanding of performance in athletic events. Through modeling and simulation and measurement, biomechanics is the sport science and the field of the sport science that apply the laws of mechanics and the laws of physics to human performance in order to gain greater understanding of performance in athletic event. So we will study here the technical skills which improves the training, which helps to improve the biomechanics, also helps to improve the equipment. It helps to prevent injuries, and overall it enhance the performance of an individual. So the importance of the biomechanics. Biomechanics and the sports. Biomechanics is the study of body movements and muscular activities. Sports biomechanics is the study of forces and stresses of human movement and their effects on athletic performance and safety. Because these principles are definitely, they are sharpening, they are toning up, and they are improving the technical aspect of the movement in order to enhance the performance in sports and safety of the sports person. It plays a crucial role in injury prevention and performance enhancement. Biomechanical analysis benefits athletes of all ages and skill levels. So everywhere these are the biomechanics, the principles of the biomechanics, and these are the mechanical laws of the physics are applied for enhancing the performance of an athlete and promoting the longevity of the career. So we will see further the importance. We will see then there are various importance are there of the biomechanics, like it develops efficient movement patterns whether on the field of play or during resistance training. It helps in analyzing the sports performance data. Sports performance data of performance is collected by different biomechanical techniques and cinematography and mammography and analyze. It helps in selection and adaptation of techniques. It helps for deciding the technique on the basis of human structure and its possible movement for the best result in sports. It helps in discovering the technique for the use of new equipments. because equipments are also designed according to the principles of the biomechanics. We will discuss further, like the principle of aerodynamics, the principle of streamlined body. It helps in discovering the techniques for the use of new equipment. It gives technical knowledge of the technical mistakes. It helps in differentiating competitions and training exercises. Physical ability can be developed with the help of biomechanics or the principles of the biomechanics, or these by these mechanical laws of the physics. It helps in generalizing the solution of biomechanical problems. It improves sports specific techniques and form and helps to enhance the performance and minimize the injuries. Biomechanics also develop proper habits, ensuring that the athlete is able to develop in the long term. It also helps students to improve their performance in sports, dance, and other physical activities. So we are this all these principles we have discussed in class 11. This is the syllabus of class 11. All the principles of the biomechanics. In 12th, we will study the specific some of the principles like projectile and factor affecting the projectile trajectory. We will see here. We will study the projectile and factor affecting projectile trajectory. So, first of all, what is the projectile? Projectile is an object. That object which is thrown into the air. Projectile is an object which is thrown into the air in sports activities. So, object thrown into the air horizontally or at an acute angle under the action of gravity is called projectile. So, there are two forces acting on it: gravitational force and air resistances. The path followed by the projectile is called the trajectory, and it is a parabolic path. It is known as the parabolic path. So, projectile is clear and its trajectory is clear. Projectile means the object which is thrown into the air and travel certain distance, and the trajectory is the path which is covered by the projectile. Here we will see factor affecting projectile trajectory, and we can see in the diagram that is the projectile is thrown and it's the trajectory. It is making the trajectory, means the path in which the projectile is moving is known as the trajectory. So we have to remember the path in which the projectile is moving is known as the trajectory, and the object which is being thrown into the air is known as projectile. So what are the factors which are affecting the projectile trajectory? It is initial velocity, means by which the object is being thrown into the air, and angle of projection, means by which angle we are throwing the object into the air. Projection height, relevant to the landing surface. Air resistance, because we are throwing the object, so then there will be resistance of the air. Surface area of the projectile, the air resistance hit the object, means it is try to stop the object, try to decrease the velocity of the object. So surface area of the projectile, surface to volume ratio and mass of the projectile and the initial velocity, the speed of the projectile by which it is moving. And gravity is the force by which the earth, center of earth, pull everything towards it. The gravitational force is there, and spin of the object if the object is moving through spinning. So these are the factors which affect the projectile trajectory. We will discuss in detail. First of all, the initial velocity. Initial velocity, how it is affecting the projectile's trajectory. Initial velocity affecting projectile trajectory. Initial velocity is directly related to the distance covered in the flight, means by the projectile. That this diagram we can see the javelin throw. Javelin will travel into the air, and that javelin is here the projectile. So initial velocity is directly related to the distance covered in the flight by the projectile. The speed of release depends on initial vertical velocity and initial horizontal velocity in which we are throwing the projectile. Having higher horizontal velocity will increase the distance covered by the projectile. So angle of projection, same, and initial velocity changing. The angle should remain same, but the velocity may be changed by the individual to individual. So this is the initial velocity. This is affecting the projectile trajectory or the path, which is the distance being covered by any projectile. So second we will see angle of projection. Angle of projection by which the projectile is being thrown. The angle of projection affecting projectile trajectory. An object which is projected at different angles but the same initial velocity cover different distances. Means if we are the initial velocity by which we are throwing the projectile is same, but the angle if we are changing, so definitely the distance covered by the object or the projectile will be changed. When it is released at the angle of 45, it covers maximum distance. So that's why whatever object are being thrown into the air, or whenever we are throwing the projectile to cover maximum distance, so it should be thrown at 45-degree angle. So this we must remember. So angle of projection changing the initial velocity is same. In this case, second we will see height of release. Height of release the projectile. The higher the level of release, the longer distance is covered in flight. Means from which height we are releasing it. So that's why in case of shot put, we have seen the taller person, they perform very well. The horizontal component, okay, the higher the level of the release, the longer distance is covered in flight. The horizontal component will be acting on the projectile for longer duration. Hence projectile will be covering a long distance. So in this case we can see here the shot put throw. So height of the release also affect the projectile trajectory. If it is thrown from the height, so definitely it will cover maximum distance. Then we will see gravity affecting projectile trajectory. Gravitational force is exerted by earth on all object, and gravitational force is constant for all the object. It is same for all the object. So gravitational force decrease at the places of high altitude. Performance in jump and throw is better at that place of high altitude, where the gravitational force is less. So gravitational force also affect the projectile trajectory. Spin. The spin affecting projectile trajectory, that is amount and direction of spin, directly affect the distance covered by the projectile. If the spin creates low pressure on the top, the object remains in air for longer period, covering longer distance. If the spin creates high pressure on the top, the object remains into the air for shorter period and it covers the shorter distance, that we can see in the diagrams also. Top spin and back spin and flat shot in tennis. So like shot put we can see, then or while we are throwing any object into the air. Top spin, less distance it is covering, and back spin it is also covering more distance, and flat shot it is also covering the less distance. Then we will see air resistance, very important, another one. Air resistance affecting projectile trajectory. When the projectile moves through the air, it is slowed down by the air resistance. I was telling you, try to stop or slow down the speed or the velocity of the projectile. So air resistance decreases the horizontal velocity of the projectile. So while we are kicking any ball, or while we are throwing any object, any ball into the air, javelin throw, hammer throw, or shooting, archery, everywhere, the air resistance also decrease the velocity. That's why it also stops the distance, decrease the distance covered by the projectile. So the factor affecting projectile trajectory that we have discussed, once we will rewind again, what are the factors which can affect the projectile trajectory? There are air resistance, weight, gravity, angle of release and height of release, initial velocity, and the spin. Now we will see here the angular movements, angular and linear movements. So angular and linear movements we will study. So first we had to know about what is the motion. Angular motion we will discuss here. To motion is change of position of the body, consists of upsetting the equilibrium of the body. So what is the linear motion? Linear motion is when a body moves in a straight line from one point to other in the same direction. It is known as linear motion. The direction can either be in horizontal, vertical, or inclined direction. But all the cases, the body or the object is moving in straight line. It is measured in feet, meter, or kilometer extra. This is the linear motion. Then angular motion. Angular motion, motion of the body about a mixed point. All points of the body moves in circle about the same fixed center line or at the axis. It can occur about an axis within the body or outside the body. So angular movement is measured in degree. So the angular movements are the circular movement. These are motion in circular motion. We can see here the angular motion. Then the angular motion is again two type. Then axis outside the body and axis inside the body. Then we will see here angular motion. Axis outside of the body, visible axis, like by holding a bar, the gymnast is rolling her body. So this is the axis outside the body. And if in this case, if she or he released her hand, so the body will move out from the circle. That is outside, axis outside the body. Axis inside the body, it is invisible axis. Like in this, the movement of a body on circular path is controlled by the center. So while this is not being controlled by the center, it will move towards the center. The magnetic motions and other motions we can see here. So in this case, we have the centripetal and centrifugal force. Centripetal and centrifugal forces are there, in which the body is moving on a circular path. So introduction to work, power and energy. Then we will see here centripetal and centrifugal force we will discuss afterwards in the next video.